Hey everybody, it's Rob, and I want to share something with you. I was watching a video just this morning. We got a runaway. I was watching a video this morning. It's something I don't get. We're in town right now. I don't live in town, so funny the things that happen when you're in town as opposed to when you're out in the country. But anyway, I was watching a video this morning by our friend Steve over at Corsair Trainers, and I actually got inspired, and I said, hey, you know what? There's an old thing in the Bible says, can any good thing come out of Nazareth or Galilee, depending on which version you read? And I've always thought, can any good thing come out of California? Well, turns out it can, and of course I knew that. I got 2 or 3 friends and some good people that we all know from California. But there's a little pecan tree growing right there. That'll be important here in a little bit. Oop, I didn't realize it's growing next to one of the sprinkler heads. I'll probably need to deal with that sooner than later. But we're going to go into my dad's backyard here in town. You know, Steve was talking about, and a couple other people mentioned how planting that kind of thing turns it into something more sustainable. And I've been thinking about doing this for a while anyway, and it just motivated me to get doing it because I get busy working and doing 100 other things, and I don't always do some of the videos that I know I really probably ought to do. So we're going to talk about this. These are things that my dad and the rest of the family, to a degree, started a long time ago. And because they got started when they did, we're still getting to enjoy the benefits and those fruits even today, and it's a pretty cool thing. And so that's what we're going to talk about. There's my dad. So, all right, out here in the alley, and just to give you an idea of the size of this pecan tree and how ginormous it has become. I didn't mention it when I was a kid. I say a kid, like straight out of high school. We moved here the year that I graduated high school, and this pecan tree was not anywhere near this size, and you can see it is just loaded with pecans. I mean, absolutely loaded with pecans. Last year it was loaded up with pecans too, but we didn't get a good crop of pecans because of environmental conditions and that kind of thing. The hulls just didn't open up off of them, and so we didn't get nearly as many as we should have. But with a little luck, this year will be different, and we'll get bunches and bunches off of them. I just can't even, every time I come here, I'm always amazed at how big this tree has gotten and what it has accomplished in the time since we got this house. Walk over here under it and get up under the canopy where it's a lot cooler. I'll give you an idea here of the size of it. I'll just compare myself. Maybe you can see how big it is. This just isn't going to do justice. I can't begin to get my arms all the way around the trunk of this tree. This tree's been hit by lightning. It's had limbs that have broken off and split because they got so heavy. At one time we were worried about the whole tree splitting and going away because it had a big break in it. We've had girdles around it that cinched it up and kept it from splitting further. There recently was a large limb that went all the way out over this way, over the neighbor's yard, and he didn't mind the pecans, but the leaves and some of the other stuff he wasn't too keen on, so he trimmed the limb back a little ways, and no big deal because there's still plenty to go around. You can see right now that it's so heavy with pecans that some of these other limbs are just sagging the ground. This is the pecan tree, and just the amount of nuts that this thing puts off to help feed us is something worth mentioning. Something else we can talk about too is the garlic that comes up all over the place. Now, garlic will go dormant after a little bit. It'll grow, come up, sprout, and then kind of prune itself back, as it were, as the tops die off. And I'm not seeing any right here, even though it's there. Mine at my house does the same thing. Garlic that I've transplanted from here and taken over there. See if there's any back here. There's a little pecan tree that has sprouted on its own. I happen to know where 2 or 3 others are as well. So in this flower bed here, there's quite a bit of garlic that comes up, and there used to be a bunch that came up on the other side over here next to where the fig tree is. But I have dug up most of that because it wasn't serving much purpose back there and too likely to get poisoned or something happened to it. There's another little pecan tree right there coming up. I'll probably transplant both of those guys along with the 2 others I'll show you here in a minute. And so we've got pecans, and we've got figs, and we've got garlic, and we've got grapes. We have picked a bunch of grapes off this over the years, and quite a few even this year. It makes white grapes and purple grapes. This trellis, my goodness, I don't even know if I can tell you when we put this trellis in, but it would have been in the early 1980s because it was before I moved to Colorado. Like I say, we moved into this house in 1977, and at one time there was a peach tree here right there that died. I think it was a peach tree, which I cut back and made a yard table out of after it died. Cut where there was sort of like a tripod where the trunk branched off into 3 branches. I cut them off flat and built a table across the top using an old pallet. See, I've been using pallets and repurposing them since the early 80s, so that's not a new thing. But even this grapevine, you can see back here how thick the main vines coming up are that feed it. This is a well established vine. And almost every year we have dove's nest in it. That is a dove's nest right there, which dove's nests are not very substantial. They're just enough to kind of keep the eggs from falling through. They almost always hatch some doves out of here. There's usually a mockingbird nest in this. So we got lots of good stuff to eat just out of this yard, and these are things that perpetuate themselves. They come back every year. It kind of falls into that whole food forest sort of thing. That's not really a food forest. I guess one tree does not a forest make, but you get the idea. And I was talking about other trees. Uh-oh. There it is. There's a little tree right there. And there's one more right over here growing out in the yard. I've already transplanted a couple out of here. All right, so here's the fig tree. Get a little bit closer look at that. Now, it probably doesn't look a lot like a tree, but we're going to call it a tree because that's kind of what it is. The reason it looks like this is because every year when wintertime gets here and we're done with the figs and ready for it to go into dormancy, Dad always prunes it way back, like close to the ground, and to keep it from completely freezing to death, because even though we're not as far north as some people would have you believe, we're still quite a ways north, and we get some pretty significant freezes up here. We have had temperatures not uncommon to get below 0 up here, at least for a little while. I've seen temperatures up here as cold as -9 and -12 degrees, and I'll tell you what, that'll freeze stuff back pretty good. Let me show you some of the figs on here just to give you an idea. Kind of see them growing, and this is actually a recent development from the time I was here a couple of days ago. So that means it is putting on strong right now. But if we go to the inside in here, move on in here, we can see, ta-da-da, look at the figs that are just about ripe inside of there. Those, even in this weird light, makes them look kind of yellow, but yellow is the stage they go to before they turn brown and purple. And I was hoping we might actually find one that was close to ripe. This one right here is getting close. You can see how it's starting to turn pretty close and going to be good, but it's not there yet. I pulled a couple the other day that weren't quite ripe. They were still sweet and yummy, but not as good as they will be when they're dumb. Ha ha. Look who's calling who. It's when they're done. When they're done getting ripe, then that's when they get really good. And, you know, figs are a funny thing. They're mentioned from a long time back. You know, old sources, old manuscripts, the Bible, other documents talk about figs. It was an important source of sugars and just something sweet and good to eat. Really don't do a whole lot to this other than trim it back and protect it, pile up some leaves, maybe sometimes put a box around it and fill it full of leaves to keep it from completely freezing. And I've dug up lots of shoots. In fact, I dug up a bunch of shoots this year off of it, roots and that kind of thing, and transplanted them at my house. In fact, I'll show you those right quick too. Well, all right, we're out of town now, out in the country. Seems like there's a country song about that, big surprise. And what I figured we'll do is we'll come and look at the garden I've got out here, and I'll show you some of the stuff that kind of goes along with the things that Dad taught me and the things that he started. And we'll just walk in here and have a look and see what we got. It's pretty primitive, but it works and it makes food for us. And I think some of y'all have probably seen my garden before. as it is. This is kind of the smaller garden. Back out in the back, way back in the back, we've got a big garden that's about 90 feet by 90 feet, but this little dude here is only about 20 by 20. Just big enough to grow some fresh food, some fresh vegetables. It's a little bit wilty right now, plus the squash bugs hit me hard. I actually had to spray them. I don't ever like to have to spray insecticides or pesticides on my plants, but it was either that or lose everything. There were thousands and thousands of them. They got completely out of hand. But you know, we talked about some of the stuff that my dad has in his yard. I don't have any grapes, but I mentioned digging up some of the roots of the fig trees, and this is them right here. Stick my leg. Hey, I got figs on this. Y'all found that with me just now. This is the first year that these plants have been here, and I got little figs on this. I would have bet against it. I figured it would take at least a couple of years before we had figs here, but it's not the case. We've got them right now. That is incredible. That makes me happy. That makes me happy, boy. Now, I don't know if they'll get very big or if they'll amount to anything, but that tells me that the roots are healthy and doing really good, which I figured they were just looking at the growth. Hooray for me. 3 cheers and a tiger for us. Makes me wonder if this other guy's got them. This is the second biggest one here. I don't see anything there yet, but that's okay. I wasn't expecting it, so that's a little cool bonus. Anyway, as I get past my excitement there, these are the fig cuttings I put out. And by the way, Bob Hansler, if you see this, this will be encouraging to you. I sent some of these fig cuttings to Bob back earlier in the year, and he got them all put out, I think, and says his are growing. Looks like they're starting to come on, so that's a good thing. He's got a way longer growing season down there, and they typically get a lot more water than we get in the form of rain and that kind of thing. So figs, where he is, ought to do really well. I know that's something he's been trying for. But now, I got myself completely sidetracked there. The figs are doing good. That was the whole point of it. I was just going to show you all that. Two things about my garden that I really want to tell you about. And a lot of you already know this anyway, but one of them is this particular variety of okra right here. This variety of okra and this variety of tomato that are in here are seeds, the plants that we've been planting from seeds that my family has been saving since around 1920, somewhere in there. So we're right at the 100-year mark, maybe even just over the 100-year mark. My dad's mom's parents were the ones that got these going. That was Bottlemans was their name, just because I want to throw that out there. They started saving these, and the way we save the seeds on these is on 1 or 2 of the plants, and sometimes more than that accidentally, because when you miss an okra pod, it'll get big enough that it's hard to eat. And so we just let the thing grow, and I won't ever cut those off. They'll stay there until they dry, and when they dry, then we'll harvest them, put them somewhere safe, and then probably leave them in the pods until we're ready to plant them or give them away. I've got seeds in these plants that I've given to family and friends all over the place. Same thing with the tomatoes. The tomato, my dad just calls them little porters. At one time in our life, he called them improved porters. I remember that, but he says no, he didn't. So who knows? You know, as we get old, we forget things. But if there's a variety for them, we don't know what it is. Same with the okra. The closest with the okra variety I've ever been able to find was called a variety called Emerald. So that, everything out here that I have, with the exception of the yellow squash, I think, are seeds that I've saved from back in the past somewhere. The cantaloupes, the zucchini, the watermelons, all the tomatoes and the okra, all of them seeds that we saved from the past. Some of these seeds were really old. The zucchini seeds, in fact, were from 1998, I think. So that makes that about a 22-year-old seed, and they sprouted. I planted several of them, and not all of them came up, which you would expect, but that tells us that the viability is still good enough to make it worth hanging on to. The cantaloupes this year are so good. Oh, they're good cantaloupes. That one looks like it's about ready. It is ready. It's already broke loose. Let me get that guy. And yeah, it's got a little spot on the bottom there, which I anticipated, but it's not rotten through yet, so it's okay. Oh my gosh, that smells good. The thing with cantaloupes, and I know this, but I always forget, is that they all grow cantaloupes and get ripe about the same time. So you go through a short spell where you are covered up with cantaloupe. Anyway, to keep this video from going too long, the variety of cantaloupe I have is called Hale's Best, and I guess it's a decent enough heirloom variety that it's worth saving the seed and planting them again. These tomatoes are right here. It's almost hard to tell they're tomatoes because the way they grow a little bit different, and mixed in with some of the weeds that I didn't get pulled. These are brandywine tomatoes, and I like these. These brandywine seeds from all these tomatoes are seeds from 2010, I think, 2010 or 2011, so that puts a little age on them. But to give you an idea, that's not even one of the big ones right there, as big as they get. That's maybe the biggest one right now, but it's got a bunch of these. And this, one of the main reasons I wanted to get these planted was because I needed to get my seed stock built up again. Oh, as I try not to fall. There you can see where I put a bunch of diatomaceous earth in there. The damage that the squash bugs did. The plant's making a comeback already since I killed them off a few days ago. Here's a squash bug right there. I don't know if that's a live one or a dead one. Are you dead or alive? Ah, a dead one, my favorite kind. But I'm not kidding when I say there were thousands of them. There were thousands of them. The zucchini variety is called Black Beauty, I think. There's some more of my dad's tomatoes, my family heirloom tomatoes. And I'll just go ahead and let you know, if y'all want me to send you some of these seeds, there's a bunch of people in the YouTube world that I have sent seeds to, and they've grown them as well. Dad on YouTube, Steve Foco, man, I don't even remember who all else. The watermelons, I don't have a clue what variety they are. They're just seeds I had, and they spilled out, and I used them. The whole idea of this whole thing here. Oh, I'm going to mention one more tomato over here that kind of an interesting. This little guy right here, I have no idea what it is. It's a tomato that came up, oddly enough, by one of the little pecan trees. I mentioned that I had transplanted some of the pecan trees from my dad's house and started them out here. And this little tomato just popped up one day and started growing, and Aranza loved it and had saved. I knew Aranza had saved some seeds, but I couldn't remember what they were. I thought they were our family variety, but I was in a panic because I had planted Aranza seeds a couple of different times, and they never produced or did good. We had such bad conditions for a couple of years, and I was getting down to the last few seeds and beginning to get in a panic, because that's an important thing for me, to be able to hang on to the seeds that she had saved. And so now I can keep those going. But it's this variety right here. They're little bitty tomatoes, but they are sweet and tasty and good. They're just really yummy little tomatoes. And we don't have a clue where they came from or what they are. If y'all know what they are, if somebody recognizes this one, let me know, because I'd be curious to find out. Anyway, you know me, I get sidetracked pretty easy. Having plants that you can take through the years, it's a silly thing maybe, but to me it's a big deal. I mean, I've got seeds that I'm carrying on kind of like a family legacy with, for 100 years. The fig tree. The fig cutting is one that my dad got, man, 40 or 50 years ago. So, you know, that's kind of something in and of itself. A lot of this is, they're just plants. They're just tomatoes. Some of the stuff is just, you know, it's just squash. It's just watermelons. It's just okra. But yet, it's kind of a legacy plant, if that's even the right term, and I don't know if it is or not. But it's a cool thing. Heirloom, I guess, is really the right term. It's just something I'm proud of, and I wanted to share with y'all. So, I don't really even know what else to say, but if you get a chance, do like Steve did, do like a lot of other people have done. Plant some stuff in your yard that'll keep growing and producing, and something your family can look back on, or your friends can look back and go, yeah, that's something they started a long time ago, and we're still getting to eat off of it. Never mind if there's any great calamity or SHTF event. It's just a cool thing to be able to keep something like that going. I hope y'all will think about that. And I'm sorry if I went long-winded. This kind of stuff, I don't know, we talk about things that we're passionate for. Maybe this is something I'm passionate for. I don't know. I feel silly even saying that. Anyway, I'm going to shut it down here. Thanks for watching, and when I edit this video, I'm going to try to cut out a bunch of dumb stuff and see if I can make it a little bit shorter. And if it's a long one, hopefully you had the sense to skip through the dumb parts. Anyway, thanks, y'all.